If you think some of these X-Wing fighters are cool, wait until you get a load of my very first one.
Like carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for comics history and action figures. And longtime channel fans are going to recognize we went with the original intro this time from all the way back several years ago. And I think it's completely appropriate because today we're talking about vintage Star Wars and my history with the line. And you're not going to believe the stuff that we're going to show you today. You had to understand just what a phenomenon Star Wars was back in 1977. Unlike today, where our attention spans are divided between television and the internet and everything that we have at our disposal, things were pretty focused back then. And Star Wars came out in the summer of 1977 and took the world by storm. I mean, on the playground, we fought every single day for who got to be Luke Skywalker. So when Christmas of 1977 came around, the only thing that anybody wanted was Star Wars toys. Unfortunately, there were none to be had. And so Kenner did the most amazing thing. Because of the short lag time that they had between acquiring the license, the movie coming out, and Christmas, they knew that they weren't going to have action figures or toys on the shelves. And so they sold fans an empty box. That's right. The famous early bird package came out for Christmas of 1977, and it contained a sticker sheet and a membership card and like a cool backdrop. But most importantly, it came with a coupon that you could mail in to be one of the first kids on your block to get the original four Star Wars figures: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, and R2D2. Now, the figures started hitting store shelves in February of 1978. So, over the course of 1978, we saw a glut of Star Wars product, vehicles, more figures, the original 12. I mean, it was an absolute heyday. And at that time, I was 5 going on 6 years old, and my whole world was Star Wars. So that Christmas of 1978, the only thing that I wanted on this earth was an X-Wing fighter. So, of course, I asked Santa for an X-Wing, but unfortunately, lots of kids asked Santa for an X-Wing that year. And Santa was pretty busy. And so, Santa and my parents actually went across a 3 state area looking for an X-Wing fighter, and there was none to be found. So, on Christmas morning, 1978, I looked under the tree and there was my X-Wing, but it was the little metallic die-cast one. And my parents said, "Oh my gosh, Santa must have gotten confused. You didn't ask him for the big X-Wing." Oh man, you talk about heartbroken. You've waited an entire year where everything is geared toward getting this one toy and it's not there. But thankfully, under the tree was a copy of this Star Wars activity book. I was at Toylanta a couple of weekends ago when I saw this book on the ground at one of the exhibitors' booths. I caught it out of the corner of my eye and I was just swept with the nostalgia. I instantly recognized this as the activity book that I had as a kid. I quickly scooped it up, and even though the original price was $1.50, I felt pretty good about paying $10 for this thing. It's in really outstanding condition for something that's over 40 years old. Look at this artwork on the front. I mean, if that doesn't stoke your 6-year old imagination, I don't know what was. And this book was clearly geared for the younger set because every page is filled with puzzles and games, and here's a recipe for cookies for Skywalker scrunchies. I remember doing this mind through there, the monster maze. You just go through, you've got the word hunt, and this book is actually still brand new. I think there's one puzzle that has writing in it, but otherwise it's absolutely perfect just like I remember it as a kid. Coming back here, there were some drawings that I remember working on. Oh, look at this, these Star Wars doodles. I can remember trying to copy every single one of these or make my parents guess what it was that I was drawing. Oh, so great. That Death Star maze was actually pretty hard. Hidden Jawas. It's an incredible, fun book. And in an era where you would scoop up anything for Star Wars activity, this was it. But the most special thing in here was this plan to build your own X-Wing starfighter. And I begged my parents to save paper towel rolls, to save toilet tissue rolls, to save a cereal box so that we could make this thing. And I tried to make it, but I never really was able to. But now we're going to fix that. Okay, so first things first, we need to assemble our supplies. We're going to need a cereal box, a used paper towel roll, some aluminum foil, one, two, three, four used toilet paper rolls. That's a lot of pooping. Construction paper, some scotch tape, a pair of scissors, a handy dandy ruler, and finally, I went by McDonald's to get some era appropriate straws. Okay, so first things first, we got to cut up the cereal box so that we can use the inside as a template for our S foils. The instructions were pretty specific on the dimension of these, so I'm going to mark them out to get everything perfect. Remember, kids, measure twice, cut once. After the basic outline was done, I measured the center of the wing and then set the lines for the taper, as the foils are more narrow on the ends than they are where they meet the main body of the ship. Okay, so we have our outlines done. Now time to get out the big scissors, the ones I wasn't allowed to use in 1979, and voila, two perfect S-foils for our X-Wing Fighter. Did you know that McDonald's straws were specifically designed to have the perfect diameter for the carbonation level used in the formula for Fountain Coke at Mickey D's? It's actually patented and everything. Next, we fold the wings in half to get that distinctive X shape. And then it's time to tape the laser cannons on the ends. I'm going exactly by the book here. Of course, we could make this fancy with a bunch of extra details, but I want this to look exactly as intended back in 1979. Okay, we've got our wings. I'm feeling pretty good about this so far. Now it's time to move on to the main body of the ship. For the main fuselage, we're going to wrap the paper towel roll in aluminum foil. I had hoped to get this perfectly smooth without a single wrinkle in the foil, but trust me, that just wasn't happening. Same thing goes for the toilet paper rolls. It was easier when I split the foil down the middle because that fit the length of these rolls better. Okay, we got 4 thrust engines. Now it's time to start putting the whole thing together. Again, the instructions were pretty specific about how far to cut into the fuselage and exactly how far apart they needed to be in order to get the S-foils to match up perfectly in that classic X-Wing configuration. It turns out that thin cardboard and aluminum foil aren't the sturdiest building materials, so this thing's kind of fragile. I want it to be fully authentic, but I did have to add a little bit of extra tape to hold this bad boy together. It definitely takes a little bit of fiddling, but once you get them in the right spot, it actually looks pretty dadgum good. The hardest part may have been getting the thrust engines to slide onto the wings while still keeping the wings in the right position. You would get one perfect and then screw the whole thing up when adding the next one. The cockpit is a simple black square made out of construction paper. Remember, we're trying to follow the instructions exactly. Before modern conveniences like glue sticks, every kid born in the 70s knew the old roll up the tape trick. And now for the finishing touch, flattening out the end of the paper towel roll to give the X-Wing its classic tapered shape. One more piece of tape on the end, and this thing is ready to defend your shag carpeted living room from the Empire, the Cylons, or even that damn Mork from Org. The X-Wing Starfighter, also known as the T-65B Space Superiority Fighter, was a single-seat craft manufactured by the Incom Corporation. A mainstay of the Rebel Alliance, it is a versatile fighter known for its speed, firepower, and maneuverability, featuring 4 laser cannons, 2 proton torpedo launchers, and an astromech droid for navigation and repairs. Nimble engines give the X-Wing an edge during dogfights. It can make long-range jumps with its hyperdrive and its astromech droid co-pilot. It had two pairs of wing-like strike foils, or S-foils, mounted at the rear of the craft on opposite sides. Normally, the foils on each side locked in place flush against each other, but during combat, the foils were folded out. This gave the craft its distinctive X-like appearance when viewed from the front or the rear. The craft was armed with four Taman-back KX-9 laser cannons, placed at the tip of each wing. The laser cannons could be fired singly, in alternating pairs, or all at once. By default, the convergence or 0 point where the lasers would intersect was set at 500 meters in front of the X-Wing. Two Kruss MG7 proton torpedo launchers were located in grooves near the middle of the underside of the fuselage. Ironically, the Incom Corporation first designed the X-Wing for use by the Imperial Navy. But it was an X-Wing starfighter, piloted by the rebel Luke Skywalker, that successfully made the trench run against the original Death Star, destroying it and turning the tide of the war. Okay, so Christmas has come and gone. We've gone through my birthday. We've gone through another summer. We're coming up on the fall of 1979. And guess what? There is only one thing that I want for Christmas, and it's an X-Wing fighter. I've been waiting 2 years for this thing now, and let me tell you, I wasn't making the same mistake again. I found every Santa Claus possible at the mall, at the fire station, anywhere I could see a dude with a white beard and a red cap. I was getting in his lap and I was telling him I wanted the big X-Wing fighter. And thankfully, that Christmas, there it was. Yep, here she is, the original Star Wars X-Wing fighter. The thing that I worshiped and searched for 2 years finally came. So here it is, the holy grail of my childhood, the toy that I waited 2 complete years to get for Christmas, the original Star Wars X-Wing fighter. And I would love to tell you that this is mine from childhood, but unfortunately, that one is long since gone, relegated to the dust heap of time. No, this is one that I picked up at Toy Federation's Retro Toy Con a couple of years ago, and it's really nice. It's very clean. It still has its working features. The electronics still work. So there's a battery compartment back here, and if you push this button, it makes a whirring noise, but also lights up this laser cannon. You can hear the noise a little bit better. So the fact that I've got one in working electronic condition is incredible. But that's not the only play feature of this X-Wing fighter. No, you have an opening cockpit where you can put your pilot Luke inside. Be careful with these. You don't want them to snap. You have landing gear that come down so that you can make all of your landings. But this is an X-Wing fighter. So of course, the X foils have to deploy. Oh, look at that. I mean, I swooshed this thing around my childhood home like you would not believe. And it just fits perfectly in a child's hand. This back compartment just really, really works for play value and swooshability. So, unfortunately, Star Wars kind of faded out as we got into the mid 80s and guys were more into Transformers and G.I. Joe. But luckily, Star Wars made a comeback in 1995 with the Power of the Force line. And in that line, they reintroduced the X-Wing fighter. And if you look, this is the exact same mold as the original. There's a little bit of changes. The electronics have been removed, but I've gone through the details of this and it's the same mold. Of course, it took out the electric light right there. You get a tinted canopy, which is very, very nice, but the mechanism still works exactly the same. Even the ion cannons are the same mold. Of course, you switch that and it pops down. What really makes a difference with this one are the different types of molded plastic and, of course, the weathering and stickers. It's far more screen accurate than our original, even though they both are really good. Of course, we weren't really paying attention to the fact that this is actually red 3 and not red 5 like what Luke had. But it's just the little details that they made a big difference with. Putting the infoils, the intakes in a different color Really, really a huge difference. The torpedo blast having that weathered, that carbon scoring sort of effect, as well as across the nose, really, really good. So this was the next big update in that. Now, before that one came out, though, in 1982, Star Wars tried a micro scale, and they came with little metallic figures that would fit right into the cockpit. And because this came out in 82, it was a very Empire heavy line. So there was a lot of cool Empire stuff. This is my original X Wing from then. Of course, I've lost the ion cannons. The stickers have long since come off. But the coolest feature about this X Wing is it has battle damage. If you press this button back here, the fuselage completely comes apart. So you can like wreck your X-Wing. But because it's all attached, all you have to do is simply snap it back into place and you're off again to attack the Death Star. One of the coolest play features of any toy that I had as a kid. I mean, you just, it just crashes. I also had the TIE Fighter. I've lost that one over time, but it had obviously the TIE Fighter effect. You had S foils that would attack and split out. Really, really good. But I'm such a huge fan of X Wings. I'll buy just about any X Wing on the market, including the play school versions. Now, you don't have to convince me that this is an awesome toy. I know it is an awesome toy. It's got that super deformed play school shape. It had the figures. I have the pilot Luke and the R2 that sits in here. Just like everything, the wings are going to come out and it's just this super super neat scale. I think you press the back and the wings come down. I love this. This was designed for like 4 plus, but you better believe it tickled the fancy of the 30 plus who bought it back in the early 2000s. Now, this is an extreme in kind of super deformed scale for your X-Wing. Our next one is actually going to be one of the most accurately scaled X-Wings of all time. And that is this monster. So this was the first of the large scale X-Wings that Hasbro put out. And some of the ways that you can tell that this is the first version is when you look in the cockpit, the Luke figure is molded into place. He does not come out, nor does R2. But what that allowed for were some pretty cool play features because up here, you've got this where you can put his sensor scope out so you can see that the sensor scope comes out and you can turn Luke's head to look at it and then he can say, I don't need no sensor scope. I got the force. This feature allows him to turn his head. So actually put out the sensor scope and then twist Luke's head and R2's head turns to look back at Vader coming in on him. It's really huge. I mean, look at how big it is compared to our vintage X-Wings. And its S-foil mechanism goes and locks into position. And of course, you get all of that cool carbon scoring and battle damage on there. But they've used this mold numerous times. This one actually came with some electronic features. There's a trigger here, and there was even a handle, I believe, where you could kind of fly it around and take advantage of the electronic features. But the one that I like was the next one that they released, which was the Dagobah X-Wing. So here's Luke's X-Wing from Empire. And you know that it's an Empire X-Wing because when you pull the R2 out, he's a Dagobah R2. So now you can put figures in here. Your 3 3/4 inch vintage figures actually fit in. They took out the different mechanisms. They took out the sensor scope to allow for that. And they removed the electronics. But that gave us this vehicle at a little bit better price. Also, they went much heavier on the deco with this one. Now, they've done a number of these. They've done different X-Wings from the Death Star trench run, but this is the one that I think is probably the most accurate Hasbro X-Wing that we've seen. But it still doesn't beat this for cool factor. As a matter of fact, you can barely tell the difference. They look, pretty much the same. Hey, y'all, thanks for taking this walk down memory lane for me. I truly think that X-Wing fighter and the 2-year wait that I had for it is the reason why I have the collection that I have now. I think it broke something in my kiddie mind and made me a completionist and the insane collector that I am. But the good news is I get to share all of that stuff with you guys. So that's actually pretty fun. And far and away, there are some spaceships that I love, but there is nothing that I love the way that I love an X-Wing fighter to this very day. So getting to share a little bit of my X-Wing collection with you, very, very choice. And how cool was that we actually went back to when I was 5 and 6 years old and made that original X-Wing fighter? I'm going to go swoosh it around my room. Actually, my wife's kind of excited to see what I was able to put together with this thing. So, as always, thank you guys so much. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a like. Give me a comment. Let me know some of your earliest Star Wars memories. And as always, for the best in comics history and action figures, subscribe to Carbon Scoring.